I have a 386P here. I don't know if you want to show that real quick. And guy brought it over for me to help him do his air compressor. And you know, the air compressor on these ISX engines has to be timed properly with the engine. You can't just throw it on in any position. So I figured I'd make a YouTube video on how to do that properly. Before we get started, I'd like to say a couple of things. One thing I would like to say is, when you go to change the air compressor on one of these ISX engines, or the crankshaft damper, or you know, any of these parts that are normally painted red, you should get the component first and then put several coats of primer on it, because it will not be painted. This one here has been painted. We painted this one already. Put several coats of primer on it. What I like to do is I like to put a coat of gray primer on it, then a coat of rust color primer, and then a coat of gray primer, and go back and forth about 4 or 5 layers, and then paint it with whatever final color, a couple of coats of that, and spend a few hours doing that and let it dry for a day or so before you start the project. Because if you take this thing out of the box and then you've got your other one in your hand, or you take your old one up there, you know, now you're having to wait to paint this thing. So it's a good idea to let this thing dry while you're taking the other component off the engine. So just a little bit of tidbit information there. Anyway, we're going to change his air compressor out, and I thought I'd make a YouTube video on it, since a lot of people ask me, well, how do you time one of these things? Well, let me show the basic process of what we're going to do, and we'll start doing it. What we have to do to change the air compressor, there's the air compressor right there, buried in behind all this stuff. We're going to have to remove his power steering tank reservoir. We'll have to, somewhere around here, we'll have to remove the power steering pump itself. We'll have to take that off, and we'll also have to take this bar right here off loose and bring it down. We'll have to take the oil filler cap off so that we can get a wrench in here, because we're going to bar the engine just like in my overhead set videos. We'll have to move the motor by hand. And the reason why is because over here on the crankshaft damper, I don't know if you can see this on the video, this big wheel right here is a crankshaft damper. There's a mark on here, and this one's really dirty, so we're going to have to clean it up and try to find the mark. There's a mark on here that says insert pin. And then the compressor, when you take the old one off, you'll put the new one on. If you come around here, you'll see the new one will be sitting, the compressor sits like this. And you see this little notch right here. That little notch lines up with this gear. You see the little X on the gear? And you just get down here even with it, and you line the two up like this, just like that. You see that? So that notch is lined up with that X, okay? And then you install the compressor when the engine is sitting on the insert pin position, and that's why we have to bar the engine, turn it with a wrench and get it lined up. So it's not really hard to do. I've seen a few engines, even come from the factory, where this is one tooth off. I don't think it's really critical, the position on the air compressor, but it needs to be close. It needs to be within a tooth or so in position properly with the engine, because the air compressor actually, from what I understand, I don't know if I'm right on this, but this is what I've always been told. They use the air compressor to help balance the crankshaft. So if you get this out of position, you could actually cause excess vibration in the crankshaft on the engine, or cause other problems. So it's important to line it up and just do the job the right way. So that's what we're going to do. So let's get started taking some things apart.